whatever reason, I always wonder, like, how do the big thinkers think so big? What is it about them that separates them from me? Because I think I'm capable, but for whatever reason, I know I'm playing small. Rather than adding $1 million in annual recurring revenue by the end of the year, we're gonna do it in 3 months. We didn't end up hitting $1 million added ARR in 3 months, but we did hit 600,000. So in 25% of the time, we had achieved 2/3 of our goal, 66% of our goal. Now we're projected to hit 2 million in revenue. Finally, fully sent it into search marketing for pest control companies. More specifically, we work with pest control companies doing at least $1 million per year in revenue, run by ambitious operators who want to grow by 30% or more year over year. And that was a huge unlock. They grew from 10 million to like $350 million or $300 million in revenue. I think a lot of times people want tactics, but it really comes down to like a way of being. And what I mean by that in this context is urgency and vision.
I'm joined by Andrew Peluso, who I feel like you're my first Austin friend. When I came here like 3 years ago, met you for the first time, and I feel like you've just introduced me to like everybody else. So I owe you the world for that. And I told Andrew last Sunday we went for dinner, and I told him the good news that I'm moving to Austin, to which he then told me he's moving to San Francisco, which is yeah.
So I didn't tell you, but I was supposed to move in April. I'm bumping it back to October.
So I can't take your apartment anymore.
No.
Dude, I've been telling everybody about this apartment. Are you serious?
You can take it after.
I bet you move
no
out.
No matter what I do, like I'm screwing up somehow. Okay.
But anyway, Andrew is honestly probably one of my biggest mentors. Every time I talk to you, you always teach me something, and you always make me 10x my idea of what I think I can do. You're like, why can't you do it in half the time and do it 10 times bigger? So what I wanted to do to talk about it today was, I literally just said, it would have been great if we could have had a mic at the dinner the other night, because we just went into a load of detail. But Andrew, first of all, give us a quick intro. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a 3-time agency founder. I went from just like classic agency journey, right? Started a marketing agency that was also doing website design, web app design, just trying to do it all for everyone. So learned the hard way the importance of niching down. Started Bananas Marketing, which now does SEO, paid search, web design for service businesses. Still wasn't niche enough. Finally, fully sent it into search marketing for pest control companies. And then last October, we went even deeper, and more specifically, we work with pest control companies doing at least $1 million per year in revenue, run by ambitious operators who want to grow by 30% or more year over year. And that was a huge unlock for me. I've just been in the agency world since like 2016. I was doing sales for a while before that. I live here in Austin with my beautiful girlfriend Stephanie, and just enjoying the ride. And I think what we're here to talk about today is my sort of exit from the agency world and what that's been like.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to hear Andrew talk about niching down, how you got that offer, everything, we've actually already done a podcast. I'll link it below. But the big thing I want to talk about today is, so I think we were on the phone maybe a few months ago when I was in Portugal, and you told me that, right, I need to hire a CEO. And then I bumped into you the other day, and randomly in Austin, and you told me that you hired a CEO and a COO at the same time.
Yeah.
And you told me that you did something like 60 hours of work from like Monday to Friday, and I was like, is that not the whole point, to hire these guys to like do that? So tell us a bit about like actually how come you hired CEO and a COO and the whole chess moving pieces that you told me the other night.
Yeah. So decided back in April that I was ready to move on from the agency world, and just try my hand at something new. I have my eyes set on something in tech and AI, but by doing that, of course you have options, right? So I could either bring in a COO to run things, and I could technically hold CEO title, and I've sort of seen how that plays out. I don't think you can really truly grow a business in an aggressive way, and I didn't feel like I could maximize the potential of Pesty if I went that route. So it felt like the right thing to do. to get Pesty to where I know it can go was to bring in a CEO. And I also didn't want to sell it because the writing was on the wall. Like if I get the right person in place, or if I was committed to being, in that CEO seat, like we could grow this thing to tens of millions of dollars in revenue, highly, highly profitable. So I wasn't interested in selling, but I didn't want to hold the business back. So I start looking for a CEO. I put my feelers out there into starting with the SEO and agency community, and also cold emailed a guy named Peter Kang, who runs a portfolio of agencies. He I believe is the CEO of the holding co, and he put me in touch with an executive recruiter. And I had already built some momentum with different candidates, and for the most part, I wasn't super impressed. At that point, one candidate was sort of starting to rise to the top, and for $15,000 with this executive recruiting firm, I could get candidates in the funnel. And if I didn't end up hiring anyone for the CEO position, then I was just out $15,000. And I figured that even though I was starting to feel good about one candidate, that it was at least worth comparing him to other recruited candidates who had like a serious track record, who were serious people. And so I engaged this recruiting firm, and I start this process of talking with some like serious people, people who have built and sold agencies, who have built and sold technology companies, just like really interesting, really cool individuals who are clearly A players with a winning track record. And as I went through that process, this guy I had sort of found early on, he just continued to impress me. And we had very similar mindsets, regarding how an operation, could run at a high level when you really want to be aggressive. And he also just so happened to have been in the pest control industry at one point, because he built a blog, a pest control blog, one of the biggest in the space, that he eventually sold for, I think it was like $1.3 million. So after that, he had went and worked for another company as a head of growth. At that company, during his tenure there, they grew from 10 million to like $350 million or $300 million in revenue. So just a super impressive candidate. And, ultimately I decided not to go with any of the candidates that the executive recruiting firm had put in front of me. Definitely some strong candidates there, but my gut was telling me that this guy I had found early on was the right fit. But along the way, one of the CEO candidates who got put in front of me had strengths in the areas where the CEO had weaknesses, and vice versa. Her name is Kim. She had grown from an account management position at Client Boost, which, have you ever heard of Client Boost? Yeah. And she by the time she left, she was president of the company. Oh, wow. So we had been talking about the CEO position for, I don't know, a month and a half, a couple months at that point. And I eventually just let her know, hey, I found someone. I really appreciate, our engagement so far, but I'm looking this other direction. However, I think given your skills, given your experience, and given the lifestyle that you want, I suspect that you would actually be a really awesome COO. And so I kind of had to create this new vision for her to step in as COO and to pair her with the CEO. CEO wasn't expecting to come in and work with a highly experienced COO, and she wasn't expecting to come in the COO position. So I get them both out to a company offsite that we were doing, just to get a feel for each other, get a feel for the team, for the organization, and it worked out. They both were like, I get it, I see what you see, I like what I'm seeing from the team, and yeah, I think we can make this work. So that was early September, so yeah, I can't believe it's only been 6 weeks. So much has happened since then. But that's how I ended up with a CEO and COO.
Such a mad story.
Yeah.
And okay, so again, like bumped into you on the street the other day and you were like, dude, I've worked like 60 hours since like Monday, and you're like buzzing about it as well. I've never seen somebody that loves working so much. But a lot of people would think if you're hiring a CEO and a COO, the plan is to like move back. That's not what you see, or is it?
Long term it is. So right now the timeline is by April, I will be in an advisor role. In the meantime, though, if I hired a CEO to come in and to do what I had always been striving for, but frankly, him coming in, he's doing a better job at it, which is pick up the pace, raise the standard, narrow the focus. And the pick up the pace at part of that framework in particular, I mean, the guy just knows how to press you. Like the way that I ask you if you can get it done in half the time or go 10x bigger, he does a really good job at getting everyone to go, right? And he wants to set himself up for success, and I want to set him and the team and the organization up for success. So I am doing a disservice to him. I'm doing a disservice to the COO, to everyone on that team. If I thought I was going to hire a CEO and just like step back. There's a lot of knowledge transfer. There's a lot of value I can still provide to the company. And yeah, it's not like I'm leaving Pesty because I hate what I'm doing or I don't still believe in the mission and the vision of what we were building. I love it. Like it's a lot of fun. So yeah, 60, I think it was actually probably more like 65 hours that week. Yes, it's a lot of work. And also it doesn't always, most of the time it doesn't feel like that for me because I'm just, I'm like a problem solver at my core, and that's all I do all day, every day is just like solve one problem after. You do the same thing, right? I mean, that's all it is. So, yeah, I don't mind it, and I'm very, I guess I was very selective in who I chose as like my partner, and my girlfriend is awesome and patient and believes in me and believes in what I'm building for us. She knows how much I care. Stephanie.
Steph's awesome.
She's awesome. We're gonna have dinner with her right after this, and so with her support, which is so important, right? I think if I had a partner who really wasn't okay with that. And also, I think if I were working that many hours and I was all in the way I was, and I was grumpy or I was impatient or avoidant or whatever, but like that's not the energy I carry throughout the day. Like I still have fun. I'm still present with her. She kind of has to pull me back a little bit sometimes because my brain will just continue to think about work. But like for the most part, we're all smiles and laughing a lot still. So. Yeah, anyways, the work is fun. I just love building.
Yeah, no, I can resonate with that. I've got a few ex-girlfriends that are like, what are you doing? And I like to call like nighttime work when I'm like just on my laptop, like on the couch, but like movies on or whatever, as like fun work. It's like, it's not full on. I'm not on calls going at it. It's just like fun little fix up things. But let's go back to hiring the CEO position, because a lot of our clients, they come on, and basically to us, they're like, okay, we want like a head of operations that can grow into a CEO position. Or they're like, right, I need to focus on content and client acquisition. I need somebody to go in like and run the business like day to day. So you mentioned that your CEO had the blog that was in a similar niche, sold for 1.2 mil. What else, like what other characteristics or like evidence when you're hiring this person like really stood out that like this is the guy? Because it's a big hire. It's a really important one.
Yeah. So there is showing up to an interview and just sort of having knowledge and experience and clearly being competent, and then there is showing up having done a little bit of research, right? You go to the website, you maybe try to learn about me as a CEO, who am I talking to, what's his background, maybe you listen to maybe you even listen to a podcast or an interview or whatever. And then there is showing up, having looked at the industry, done your homework, put together like a memo or a spreadsheet or a deck or something where it's like, whoa, like this person showed up just above and beyond in terms of preparation. And so I found that most candidates showed up maybe having done a little bit of homework on the company, Oftentimes the most prepared would usually show up like with just some questions, right? They prepared some questions. Shane, who I hired, he showed up having done, doing all of that stuff, but also like showed up with a spreadsheet with he loves memos. So with like a memo with questions and thoughtfulness, and through that I could see his ambition, I could see his competence, I could see how big he was thinking. That was another part of this that it never occurred to me that if I was hiring someone to come in to be a CEO of the company, that thinking big would be something that I thought that would be table stakes. It turns out it's not like at all. And so that was part of my filter was, I know what Pesty can be. In fact, I was actually even thinking too small compared to what we ended up landing on with Shane. And so I was looking for someone to come in and really have like a big vision for what was possible. And if they didn't, it's just sort of making an assumption, but what it was telling me, if they were thinking too small or too slow, was there was a lack of self-efficacy there that I think, was going to hold them back as CEO. So just showing up prepared. Kim, who I hired as COO, she was very similar. She showed up super prepared with like presentation ready. And I did not ask them to do this, right? So I sort of show up to these interviews wondering, how is this person going to show up? What kind of research do they do? But the ball is in their court. And I might ask of them something, right? And then if I ask them to show up with something prepared, it's like, how did they execute that? Like how thoughtful were they about the thing that I asked them to do? And it's a spectrum. And, I was looking for someone who showed up like just all the way. Because that's how I would show up if I was going to interview for a CEO position of a really fast growing multi-million-dollar company. Like, it was actually surprising how few candidates were, now in hindsight, I guess I would sort of call them like over-prepared in the best way possible. But I thought I would get a lot more of what I saw in Shane and Kim, and I just didn't,
Dude, I love that. I talk about this all the time to my team. Have you ever seen the TV series Undercover Boss?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's like the boss goes undercover, goes into the team and all that. I'd love to do that, but like undercover, like recruiter goes in and tries to get a job, because everybody always asks me like, how do you stand out in an interview? And it's literally, there's so many lazy people out there. There's so many people that like just think because they're applying for 10 jobs, like, just like show up to each one differently. But I give it all the advice with like my really good friends. I'm like, dude, do the research, show up, and like just show that you really, really want the job. And it's something that I do when I'm hiring internally. If I really like this person, I'll just ask them like, how much do you want it, right? And some people won't like that question, but you can tell when somebody answers, yeah, no, like it's a good company, it suits this or whatever, and somebody turns around and they're like, F yeah, like I really want to join this company, let's do it. And it's like, I feel like those, just asking questions like that change the whole trajectory of the interview.
Yeah, it's it's just, so in my experience, true A players, like the rock stars, they have zero interest in wasting their time. And it matters to them where they work, because there's no shortage of opportunities for A players because they are so few and far between. So, it's important that if I'm showing up for an interview, or I'm expecting someone to show up for an interview, like I want to know that they value their time enough to be like really considerate about the career that they're choosing, about the company that they're choosing. I'm not interested in just filling a seat. And you're right, like most candidates, oddly enough, even at the CEO level, they just show up, for lack of a better term, like lazy. So I don't know why that is, but it does make it rather easy for people who are serious to stand out. The bar is not high.
Quick pause. If you're getting value from this conversation about scaling agencies and hiring top talent, I want to share something that might help you. Are you struggling to find A players for your digital marketing agency? we've got you covered. For SEO experts who turn rankings into revenue, head to SEOforhire.co. For paid media specialists who boost your bottom line, check out paidmediajobs.com. And if you're looking for foot rubs, you're definitely in the wrong podcast. All right, let's jump back into the episode. Okay, if we switch it up to, if you're happy sharing the figures, I'll let you share it if you are.
Sure.
But you messaged me in February, I think. So you messaged me what your goals were for the year at the start of the year, and then you texted me, I'm pretty sure it was February or March, it was something early, about how you hit X amount of revenue in like a way shorter span than you did. Do you want to share what that was and how you did that?
Yeah, so we finished last year between the two agencies, which all the fulfillment was done by one team. Like basically it's one company, at 950,000 in revenue. And I came into the year thinking that, okay, well, let's see if we can add another $1 million in monthly or annual recurring revenue to the company. And then, February comes around, and I had been a part of this leadership training program based here in Austin, which you should definitely do, by the way. And it just, I went in with the intention of breaking through this ceiling I had put on myself. For whatever reason, I always wonder, like, how do the big thinkers think so big? What is it about them that separates them from me? Because I think I'm capable, but for whatever reason, I know I'm playing small. And as part of the third level of this leadership training, you are given the opportunity to set a goal. And funny enough, when you go into the program and you set the goal, they kind of limit you a little bit. They're like, set a goal that is like a stretch but achievable. And I'm like I'm gonna set just like a big crazy goal. Like why not? What do I have to lose? Like I don't get to go to this like celebration at the end if I don't get it or something. Like it just didn't make sense to me that they were interested in holding me back in any way. So I kind of get it, but I basically said, you guys, rather than adding $1 million in annual recurring revenue by the end of the year, we're going to do it in 3 months. And we didn't end up hitting $1 million added ARR in 3 months, but we did hit 600,000. So in 25% of the time, we had achieved 2/3 of our goal, 66% of our goal, which was super cool. And so that was a huge breakthrough for me. Now we're projected to hit 2 million in revenue at the end of this year, so we'll more than double what we did last year, and we're also projected to hit 2.7 million in annual recurring revenue. That's what will go into next year in terms of a run rate, and that's after finishing last year at 1 million. So it's been just fun, man, super fun, moving fast, setting big goals. Loving it.
I love that. And so what did you have to do differently in the actual company?
So this is going to sound very woo-woo because I think a lot of times people want tactics, but it really comes down to like a way of being. What I mean by that in this context is urgency and vision. I was not, if I would have hit that goal by the end of the year, $1 million added in ARR, but because that was what the goal that I set. So I was setting myself up to hit it only because that was what I said I wanted, right? And so by compressing that goal into 3 months, sure, I didn't quite hit it, but I sure got a lot closer than I would have had I not set that goal. So having the vision to like having the courage to think big, and then also put that out into the world, and then having the urgency to get it done. I to be more specific about some of the sacrifices and things I had to do. In one case, I was supposed to go on a bicycling trip up the coast of California with a friend of mine, and a few weeks prior, an opportunity came up to both sponsor and speak at and participate in a boutique pest control conference. And I immediately knew, the ROI opportunity of showing up to that conference. I called my friend. I said, hey, we have to reschedule or can't do it. I'll pay whatever I need to pay in cancellation fees. And I promise you, I feel bad, like having to do this, but I have this goal right now, and I know this is massive for me if I go do this. And luckily, he's one of my best friends, longtime friends, so he understood for the most part. And I went to that conference. I flew out. I was under the impression there were going to be 30 companies out there, all that were our ICP, which is $1 million, not pest control companies. There were only about 10 pest control companies, and most of them were not our ICP. So I get out there under the impression that I'm going to crush it. And then once I kind of figured out what the demographics were, I didn't let that hinder me from delivering my presentation with the same kind of oomph and passion that I would have if those were all my ICPs and it was as big as I thought. But I still ended up walking away from that conference having closed the organizer of the conference as a client. They were my ICP, and doing that. Also, I was able to meet a consultant in the industry who has recommended several companies to us. So, like just being really clear on the importance of our reputation, on the vision, the urgency, all of that, just sort of consistently amounted, in different contexts to the success that we had. And then I also think that being as dialed in to our ICP as we are, like, if you're a pest control company and you're an operator and you're doing at least $1 million per year in revenue and you identify with being like ambitious and wanting to grow, we are one of one. There is no one else on planet Earth that does what my team does and serves the clients that we do. There are pest control marketing agencies, there are marketing agencies, there are home service marketing agencies, but if you're our ICP and you see our website and you talk to us, it's like we built the company for you. And that kind of positioning has also been very powerful for us this year. Marketing, so much easier. Sales, completely different conversations. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that. So you've hit 7 figures, right? You shared with me the other day that you've got a big 8-figure number that you guys want to hit the next few years. What do you think you have to change that you guys are doing now to get to that?
Well, what we're doing today is we're getting me out of the way. I definitely did not realize how much of a bottleneck I was for the company. Hiring is
in what way?
I was managing accounts. I hadn't handed off a lot of that. I handed off substantial amount to team members, but I was still doing monthly meetings. I was still, I've still been creating like proposals and doing the sales. There was just a lot that I was doing that was in the weeds, and I don't mind working, but ultimately, like, we need to hire. The work needs to be delegated. We need to spend money to hire A-Players. That's something that previously, we run a very profitable company because I'm very conscientious of the money that we're spending, and I think I'm good about making sure that we're not wasting money. But going back to working with A-Players, like those guys, they want to be paid and they deserve to be paid, right? So hiring A-Players who are ready to come in and have a big impact is going to be the biggest unlock from here to where we're going. Thinking big in terms of strategy. Like, we're right at the beginning now of building some software, an online scheduler, something that we can deploy to our clients. Putting a better sales system in place, knowing our numbers better, and knowing how much can we spend in order to acquire a client, and then how are we going to go about spending that. Historically, we really haven't spent much on marketing and advertising, so having a budget set aside, hiring a marketing manager to manage that budget, building a culture, and then advertising that culture so that we attract the right kind of A-Players. We're still small enough and haven't been around long enough that we have to engage like recruiting firms and all that to find people for us. But it would if you build the kind of brand that just attracts people and people want to come and they seek you out, I think that's definitely what we're aiming for. Not that we want to go find people, but we want to be known. We want to be known in the agency world and in the space as like, if you want to go work and kick ass and join a rocket ship, like go to Pesty or at least consider them. Yeah, I think those are all the things that are coming off the top of my head. There's a lot more, right? Like just execution at that level cannot be contingent on like the person at the helm. Like you need really strong people. So I guess it's just people, right? Like agency, service, business, it comes down to people.
I love that. And what you said about building a culture and stuff, like one thing I tell everybody is like how much time and effort do people put into their like client acquisition process. It's like nearly the biggest thing is like business development. That's the big thing. But if you spent like less than a quarter of that time on your EVP, your employer value proposition, it's like you just have A-players lining up for you. And I know a few, I was in San Diego recently with a very successful woman who owns a very big agency in the UK and US. Like she just has all these A-players that like I know of because like we chat with them, but they're always in contact with her because it's like, when have you got a role opening? And especially what you said about making sure like A-players will always have a role. It's like just making sure that company is like at the forefront of that.
Yeah, because A-players want to work with other A-players. It's a lot of fun. Like that challenge is something that A-players seek out. They want to be a part of something that is growing as fast as possible, for the most part, because that means growth opportunity for them. It means they get to grow in their career, get raises, get new challenges, right? A-players want to be challenged. A-players want to work for a cool company. Like we went through a brand refresh for Bananas and Pesty a year and a half ago, and it made a big difference. I suspected it was going to make a difference to like our leads and clients. What I didn't realize was how much it was going to matter to the employees. The logo on an individual's LinkedIn profile is a status symbol, and if you're going to have someone's headshot, employee's headshot on your website, they don't want to be on some rinky-dink, lame, like ugly website, unless that's part of your ethos, right? Then it can work. But like for the most part, that's not companies. And so I really want our team members and our employees to be like proud of the fact that they work there and feel like they're a part of something special and cool and fun.
Awesome. I love that. So you've been doing a lot of cool things, right? You've hired your CEO, you've done your COO. What lesson do you think you've learned that's the biggest one that you would tell young Andrew who's just started?
Man, I got to choose one. It depends on, so much of it depends on my age. Have some hard-earned lesson over the years. I think the number one lesson, if I could just start at the beginning in running an agency, would just be to niche down. I had never experienced product market fit until October last year when we went from a pest control SEO and PPC agency to a search marketing agency, $1 million and up pest control companies, ambitious operators, 30% year-over-year growth goals. Like that one tactical change in our positioning has made a massive difference in every aspect of the business: marketing, sales, operations. Everything is easier. Everything is more efficient, more profitable. If I could go back and just get me to do one tactical thing, it would be that for sure.
Awesome. And my last question for you is, so I mentioned that when I hang around you always are like, Josh, do bigger, do it in half the time. Do you have a group of people that do the same thing to you? That's a no.
No, yeah, not really. I would say only in the last like year and a half as my it's been interesting because I think as you start a business and you sort of look up to people who have built a 7-figure business and then a multi-7-figure and an 8-figure business, and you want to be around them. Like, at least I wanted to be around them. I wanted to learn from them. But, those individuals are, they're operating at a level typically where they want to hang out, kind of like A players want to hang out with other A players. They might be open to a conversation with you, and depending on like the energy you show up with and like how seriously you're executing, it doesn't necessarily matter that whether or not you're running an 8-figure business or 7-figure or 6-figure, but there is something to be said about having the evidence and the track record for being able to execute at a high level, that all of a sudden, when you have kind of created that reputation, that credibility, it's much easier to get exposed to people who are thinking bigger, right? They can just, you can just sort of like sniff it out, right? If someone is not really serious about their time, they're not really serious about, doing the things that they say they're going to do, total lack of discipline, people are selective about who they hang out with. So only recently have I really been exposed to other entrepreneurs and people who are similar in that sort of big thinking, do it in half the time, sort of mentality. So not to say I don't have some like amazing friends and people who I absolutely love, but that specific kind of thinking, only recently, just like a couple people who, like kind of like once you start to get, you built a company, and also you get busy, right? Like it's just, you don't connect with those people as often, and I'm okay with it, but anyways.
Awesome. And Andrew, where can people follow you along?
Is it over already?
We're done.
That flew by.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
I guess just, I don't know, Andrew Peluso. If you Google Andrew Peluso, I'm pretty sure I'm like the first and second result that pop up. Find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat or connect.
Awesome. Sick. Thanks, man. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're an agency owner that is wanting to scale and wants to continue bringing your business to new heights and doesn't want to put everything on pause for hiring and finding the best talent that's out there in SEO and paid media, well, that's something I can help with. I own a recruitment company that has specialized in both the SEO and paid media sector, and we work with 100+ businesses. So I'm going to leave 2 links below. There's no big pitch here, but if you want to talk over strategy and hiring and how myself and my team can find you the best A-player talent in both the SEO and paid media sector, then please book in, and I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.